Hi, I'm Yolanda, and this is Speak On. What is it that really makes us a man or a woman? A boy or a girl? Who decides gender? Why is it so binary? Should we even care about it beyond our medical needs or issues, or what we want to do with our genitals? A growing number of people are rejecting traditional gender roles and gender identities, and that's leaving other people, well, a little bit confused. But I mean, who cares? If it's not your personal gender we're discussing, why do you need to involve yourself? We've seen the growing conversation about transgender people and rights and increased visibility of transgender people on TV and films, but we've also seen the rise in this kind of anti-trans discourse that's happening right now, which is, frankly, really disturbing. But what do we really understand about gender identity? And what do we understand about people that are trans, genderqueer, or non-binary? What is it that makes people feel that they don't fit in with being a man or a woman, a boy or a girl? Is it because the often ridiculous stereotypes that we're brought up with are so restrictive? And we're so programmed at birth that we just don't know how to just be or be anything else other than what we're showed to be. If traditional gender roles and behaviours were scrapped, would we all be non-binary? Would we even use gender to define ourselves? Or would we just be more comfortable with saying, I'm a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, if there were no expectations making us think that we had to behave a particular way because we fell into that particular gender category? A lot to discuss. Today, I'm joined by Tabby Lamb. They describe themselves as a lazy femme national treasure, which is possibly one of the best descriptions I've ever heard. The writer and performer is the founder of Ed Fringe Queer and Theatre Queers. Thank you so much for joining me, Tabby. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm so
I'm
excited
really
to chat to you.
too. Well, no one else can see it, but I can see the glorious clouds and sky seen on the wall behind you, and it's instantly cheered me up.
That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. Every day I wake up to a beautiful blue sky, no matter the weather.
So how are you doing today? How have you been? I know no one wants to talk about coronavirus anymore, but I still ask everyone how their year's gone because it's been different for everyone. How has it been for you?
It's been weird, mostly. I think everyone has had the same sort of feelings of isolation and missing people and missing human touch. And then I work in theatre, so everyone working in theatre has just missed, theatre.
Work, yeah.
But I've been very lucky work-wise, and I've managed to stay afloat and keep working throughout the pandemic. So I am very lucky, but also very much looking forward to a break at some point, because when you're working from home for yourself and there's nothing else you can do because fun is banned, then you tend to work a little bit too much.
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to work hard on that balance, because then it is. Yeah. I feel like I'm working sometimes because I'm like, well, what else should I do? I just don't want to watch any more TV. I'm going to fight my TV in a minute. I just don't want to look at it anymore.
Yes, yeah. I feel you so much.
So, I mean, you talked about having a break from work and from theatre, but you have got 2 audio plays that are being released this month. Like, can you tell me more about them?
Yes, so I have that. One of them has just been moved to June. So we have the first one comes out on the 27th of May, and it's part of a group of short plays. So they're being released by 45 North under the title Lifted. And my play within that is called Tea for Tea, which is a trans romance between 2 kids who meet when they are 15. They meet at T4 on the beach, and then they stay in contact over the internet for like the next 10 years, basically. And each scene is set on a different website, and their romance develops, and they fall in love with themselves and with each other as the internet develops and comes of age as well. And then the next play is called Darling, which is also released by 45 North, and that comes out on the 10th of June. And that is a reimagining of the Peter Pan narrative. So it's about a character called Darling, who you may know by another name, who comes back from the Never Never and is met with a lot of expectations around what motherhood is, around what gender is, and around what family is, and then decides to break all of those expectations. But then also in breaking those expectations, they get drawn into the world of like corporate pride and gentrification of queerness, and then they sort of fight against that and fight for the right to be a messy queer, basically.
I love that. Okay, I absolutely have to I have to get on board with both of these, especially that last one. Honestly, you really had me there. That sounds amazing.
I'm really excited for that. We recorded it like a few months ago, and David Hoyle is playing the lead, and he's just one of my favorite performers of all time. And when the director was like, should we approach David, I was like, I mean, yes, we definitely should, but there's no way he's going to say yes. And then he did, and he was so lovely and so sweet, and we just had such a blast recording it. So they're both great. I'm really excited about both of them. And T for T is also being developed into a full-length play for the stage. So that is happening. And we've done some workshops at the Donmar Warehouse, and we're hopefully going to be opening it at some point in 2022. And it's going to be amazing. And you're going to see like all of that noughties internet on stage.
Oh my gosh, T4 like, on the beach on stage.
Yeah. And there's going to be like a scene on MySpace, a scene like all of these different websites that you remember. There's a whole Neopet section. There's a Habbo Hotel bit. There's a Club Penguin bit. Like,
oh my god, you're bringing it all back. Is MSN Messenger in it at all?
Oh, of course, babe.
Oh my gosh,
don't you worry.
Bringing it all back. You're bringing it all back. I love it.
Bring it all back to you.
Exactly. And also, and we are that old.
Yeah. Oh god.
Yeah. Let's crack on. So today we're talking about gender. So this series of Speak On, we're talking about gender, and the reason why I chose gender and society is because I do not understand what other people do not understand about gender. I don't get it. I'm like, what is it that you don't get? Don't get me wrong, I don't kind of go around stepping into a conversation and saying, well, this is what we're going to talk about. But when people are saying crazy things, I will not so much wade in, but just run in giant forehead first and be like, no, and then try to correct them. But because people can't get their head around trans rights, they can't get their head around people being transgender, they can't get their head around people being non-binary, they can't get their head around things that are happening to women. It's just all like, I don't know what's going on. So that's what this whole series is exploring. And today we're talking about we're talking about gender, we're talking about people being non-binary, we're talking about people being trans. And so I've got a bunch of questions to ask you.
Okay, I'm ready. I am ready.
All right, okay, let's do some metaphorical lunges and get ready. Okay.
Stretch out, come on.
Exactly. Right, so you are non-binary.
Uh-huh.
And so what does it mean for a person to be non-binary?
So when you think about gender, a lot of people would just think, oh yeah, male and female. There's two options, but for me, for most trans people, and actually for everyone, if they think about it, gender is a really wide spectrum where you've got the ultra masculine at one end and the ultra feminine at the other end. And in between those options, you have thousands of tiny little options as well. You can have people slap bang in the middle who are androgynous. You can have people who are slightly more towards the femme end, but still in the middle and things like that. So I describe myself as non-binary trans femme because I am more femme, but I still don't feel binary. I don't feel constricted to either of the two more mainstream genders. And there's a million and one different versions of gender. Everyone has their own unique interpretation of gender. If you were to go around and ask cis people, what makes you a man? They would all have different answers as well. So that's just their interpretation of gender. And gender is such a personal thing that everyone can have their own version of it and define themselves however the hell they want. And it doesn't really affect anyone else because we're just making ourselves feel more comfortable and making ourselves feel whether it's comfier or safer or more authentic. So yeah, that's how I try to describe it. And then there's a lot of people aren't aware that non-binary sits underneath the trans umbrella either. So when I try to visualize it, I try to picture there's like a massive umbrella that says trans.
Yeah.
And then underneath that umbrella, you've got loads of other umbrellas. So you've got a binary trans umbrella, and then underneath that you have like binary trans masc and binary trans femme. And then you have a non-binary umbrella, and underneath that you could have genderqueer, you could have demi-boy, you could have non-binary trans femme. There's, again, millions of different ones underneath that. So there's just, we're all part of one community and one family, and we'll have each other's backs, but we all use different words to describe ourselves because there are loads of words, and words are great, so why not use them all?
Yeah, love it. And things, I think people, they really struggle with the notion of gender, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much they are, I suppose, just really falling into societal norms.
Yeah.
And just doing what's stereotypically expected of them.
Gender is not a biological thing. Gender is a human construct that we invented, and our expectations of gender historically have changed so much. So high heels were originally invented for men so that men could show their power and their stature. And it used to be that blue was a girl's color and pink was a boy's color, and all those sorts of things. And all of those things that we really typically associate with male and female really come from the Victorian era. Yeah. And that's when we became a lot more puritanical about gender and about expression in general, whether it's sexual expression, gender expression, political expression, all of those things. That we really sort of cracked down on people being whoever they want to be at that point. So cheers, Vicky. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and whenever I have these conversations with people, and it's like people are saying pink is for girls, and I was like, well, there were, pink used to also be the color of war, because it's like washing blood out of your clothes.
Yes.
And when you say that to them, now they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, also, how little do you know about history that you haven't seen a man in heels? Like, truly. And also, those heels were banging.
Yes.
Yeah, they were.
Literally.
They were so nice.
So great. So great.
So how old were you when you started to experience, I suppose, is gender dysphoria the correct term, or is it just like, what did you feel?
Yeah, so gender dysphoria is something that some trans people feel. Not all trans people feel it. And I think that's another big discussion within the trans community, where there is a bit of gatekeeping over who can be trans. And if you don't feel gender dysphoria, can you be trans? And my thoughts on that, first of all, are that hell yes, being trans is not about pain. It's not about suffering. It's not about, oh, woe is me, I felt the worst, so therefore I'm more trans than you. I have felt gender dysphoria numerous times, and throughout my childhood I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what it was I was feeling. I didn't know what I was exploring or wanting to explore but too scared. But it's definitely been something throughout my life, and a feature there that once I got the word for it and learnt the word for it, I was like, oh, okay, this is a thing. This is a thing. And it's the same with non-binary. Like, I always knew that I wasn't a boy, but I also always knew that I wasn't quite a girl.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't the language for it when I was growing up. So I think I came out as non-binary probably when I was like 23 or 24-ish. So that's quite late for these days, because Gen Z, as we were talking about, iconic Gen Z, have had all this information so much earlier than us because of the internet. They've had YouTubers talking to them about gender. They've had access to message boards and Reddit and all of that, which we didn't have until we were much, much older. So it's something that I think people are experimenting with earlier and younger, and people seem to think that there are more trans people than ever now. And I think actually we're just more vocal about it because we can be, because of the internet. There's that community, and we've seen people thriving. We've seen people like Laverne Cox and Janet Mock and Elliot Page and all of that thriving, and we're like, oh, we don't have to live in hiding. We don't have to be scared. We don't have to be worried. We can actually just like be true and be authentic. So yeah, I would say it's been a while now since I had really bad dysphoria, but it comes and goes. Like, it's like, I always sort of compare it in ways to like body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
And that can get really confusing because if you're a fat trans gal like me, I've had a bit of both. So working out what's making me uncomfortable, whether it is like self-esteem issues or whether it's gender issues and all of that, has been a complicated ride. But it's something that you feel so much better when you're able to be authentic, no matter what. Like, I'm on hormones now and they're fucking ace.
Yeah.
Love it. And it just makes me feel so much more me. Even before any physical changes were happening, I was like, this feels so much more me. And this feels so much better and more exciting.
And then, so how old were you when you, because obviously like you rightly pointed out, when you're younger and you're feeling them, you don't really know what that is. So how old were you when you started to feel that?
I don't really know. Like, there are pictures of me like when I was 3 going to nursery in a Cinderella dress that I made my aunt make for me.
Love it.
Like, it was always there. There was always something. Whenever we did, for every Halloween, I would be a witch or something that meant that I could wear a skirt and put on a wig. And I mean, that's every Halloween when I didn't go as Nana the dog from Peter Pan, which for some reason was like my go-to for a long time as well. But I think that's just because I wasn't brave enough to be Wendy and I didn't think I could be Peter. So I was like, I'll be the dog. Why not?
Nana's an unsung hero, it's fine.
I mean, she's an icon. She's an icon. But yeah, it was always something that was there in the back of my mind and that I was trying to figure out what it was and what it meant. But I just didn't know that there was an option. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know that other people felt like this. So it was a case of like moving to London and meeting other trans people. And I used to work at Soho Theatre, so I worked front of house and on box office there, and I would get to see so many amazing shows and meet so many amazing artists. And it was definitely like that showed me the options. It showed me the different things I could be or do. I remember seeing Justin Vivian Bond perform and being like, who is this human? What is this human? Why am I so drawn to you? And why do I feel you're so close to me and my story when you're like an American person who's like 20 years older than me and has an amazing voice and sings, and I'm not a singer, and like all of those different things. I was like trying to work out why I was so obsessed with these people. And thankfully I worked it out.
That's awesome. So like you talk about the fact that you've gone through ups and downs throughout the whole thing, but what kind of support did you get, and how did you talk to your family and friends about this as you were going through it, or is it something you kind of did privately and then you were able, when you felt stronger or more able to, you said something?
So I talked to my friends first because like I'm so lucky in that I have an amazing, really close, solid group of queer friends. We have our WhatsApp group, which is my top pinned WhatsApp chat called Queer Fam Chat, and we all like, it's been quite annoying because there's like 8 of us, so we haven't been able to all meet up together in so long. We've had to do like little arrangements of 6, and before that meet one-on-one and do all of that, but they've been so supportive and so amazing. And I like, just all of my friends are queer. I think I know about 3 straight people in the world. And then a lot of my friends now are trans as well, and we have each other's back and we support each other, and we go out and we party together and we watch movies together, and we also sit down together and write open letters to the theatre industry exposing the institutional transphobia. And we run the gamut of like going out and getting really messy, and then going for like really important meetings with big producers telling them why they fucked up and how they fucked up. And my family are great. I don't talk to them about it loads, mainly just because it's just a bit of a weird, awkward thing to sit down and talk about. Like, cis people don't sit down and like be like, so I'm going to tell you why I feel cis today. It's just like, it's a thing. It exists, and they are lovely, and they are good, and they do their best with pronouns, and like they practice with each other when I'm not there, and like it's really cute. They're lovely. I'm so lucky to have them, because they're great. Even my grandma is like, I mean, this is the point where I realize I can't remember how old my grandma is, but she's old, but she's iconic, and she's like, she's so good at my new name and my pronouns, and like whenever I introduce her to like other trans friends, like it's just, she's got an open heart and an open mind, and it's chill.
I love that. That's so lovely. That's so warming to hear. It's always lovely when you got a family that will support you. So many people don't. So you always feel super lucky, don't you? When it's like, you know, your family, you just always have your back no matter what. My
mum is such an angel in that, like, she texted me at one point. It was a few months ago now, just completely out of the blue, and was like, I feel so lucky to have you in my life, and I know that so many trans people don't have that support. So if anyone needs a mum, she was like, if anyone needs somewhere to come and stay, if they need a countryside getaway, we've got a spare room. They can come and feed the chickens. They can chill out. We can look after them. And like literally on Monday, someone who I tweeted about that, and then someone saw it on Twitter, and they approached me on Instagram this week being like, I really need a mental health getaway. Is this still a thing? Was that really a thing? Like, was your mum joking? Was that like serious? And I was like, oh no, that's 100%. And now on Monday, they're going to stay with my parents for a week, just to like get out, get away, be in the countryside, go for long walks, and like chill out.
Yeah, and just have some like lovely, wholesome parenting.
Yeah, have a bath in the countryside and all of that.
Oh my god! Okay, your mum sounds like an angel, and I need to get
she
her
really
on the podcast
is.
At some point.
Oh my god, she's great. She works in child protection, so she's got lots to say.
That is just, honestly, that's really made me smile so much, because it's throughout a lot of these the chats that we've had and the recordings I've had of this series. There have been so many different things that I've heard, and most of them thankfully have there's something really good in there as well as somebody being shitty, but so it's just lovely to hear that. So what are the common misconceptions people have about people that are non-binary?
I think people often expect that non-binary people have to look androgynous. They expect that we have to present in a certain way. Quite often, the image that goes to people's heads when they think about non-binary people is someone who is AFAB, so that's assigned female at birth, someone who is skinny, someone who is white, someone who is in their early 20s or late teens, someone with like facial piercings and funky colored hair. And it's like, well, yes, that is a thing, but also like non-binary people run the gamut of what you can be, because we're not withheld by societal norms or gender expectations. There is no, we have a really long history of existing, but we don't know that history because it was wiped out by mostly white British people who were colonizing all of these other places that had incredible histories of third genders, fourth genders, fifth genders that were just natural and part of their community, whether that's African tribes or whether that's Native Americans or Indigenous Australian people. It's always been there, but we haven't, as white people, we wiped that history out. We didn't want it because it was scary and it contradicted the norms that we had essentially like dominated the world with and for, and that power was scary. So we've got to rebuild that legacy and that history, and we can do that by being whoever the fuck we want to be. So I know non-binary people with massive beards who wear plaid shirts and like you don't express themselves in any feminine way in their clothing. And that's chill. I also know non-binary people who are super high femme, never go outside without a full face of makeup and some heels. And then I also know people like me. I'm a lazy femme. Can't be asked to shave my legs or put makeup on or stuff like that most of the time. Normally I do my nails, but you know, pandemic. But I'm still like going to turn a look and look cute and wear something cloud printy and adorable. And I think people just expect us to all look and dress the same, and it's like, no, the whole point is to escape those expectations, because that's not how we feel. And yeah, I would say that's probably the most common misconception.
Yeah, I completely get that. It's like whenever you see anything like that depicted in shows, which are when they're just written by usually cis white men, it's just all stereotypes all over the place. And I love what you were saying there about the fact that there are historically in lots of different cultures, there are all these different genders, and there are all these, it's just people were just existing. I mean, which, as we know, basically the history of most of the world is people were existing, and a white man in a boat turned up. Like literally. Yeah. Like, yeah. And that is why that is the story of me now being in England. But you know, it's just everything. It is like that, and it's always really interesting for me as a Black person to see there is so much homophobia in particular parts of certain Black communities, not all of them, but like particularly I come from Jamaica, my family come from, and they have homophobia as well there, and all of that is literally just colonialism gone wild.
Totally. That all came from white people going over there and being like, oh, we're scared of this, so let's tell them it's sinful, let's tell them it's awful, and let's like throw that down. And it's specifically Christianity as well, and variations, and not specifically Christianity, but like the certain interpretations of Christianity that have been used to oppress pretty much everyone but the cis white man.
Oh God, yeah. It's like, honestly, I'm not religious at all. I'm an atheist.
Yeah,
and
same.
My family are religious, but then they aren't on the wilder end of the interpretation of Christianity, which is good. And it's just, I don't know, when I meet some of my like parents, I'd say not my parents' friends, because my parents are cool, so their friends aren't shit. But then some people that they've known in the past, and some of the stuff that they've said, even as a 13-year-old, I would full on be in complete verbal matches with grown-ass men, just telling them they were ridiculous. Because they were just like, oh, and then women shouldn't be doing this. Sex in the City is going to change. I remember some guy literally spouting off about how Sex in the City was going to ruin the world, and then it's going to be ruining Black women because they should be at home having kids, and gay people are an abomination. And I screamed at him. I was like, oh yeah, I was a teenager and I just lost it. Like, ugh. Anyway, just had a flashback. I still want to punch him in the face. And
I mean, I'll be your character witness if you do, babe. Don't worry.
Yeah, she was with me the whole time. But yeah, so what is the best way then to ask someone's gender identity? So obviously, you know, Instagram actually just introduced the new pronoun feature.
It did, which is very exciting. So on Instagram, you can now update your pronouns without having to use up characters in your bio. There's a whole specific section for it. And my thing, I always think that the easiest and best way to ask someone's gender identity is to tell them yours. And also, people don't owe you their gender identity. It's not always safe for people to be out, whether that's because of family situations or cultural situations. It's not always safe for someone to be out. So I'm kind of against the enforced pronoun circles and things like that. But whenever I do like workshops or facilitation stuff, I always say, go around and introduce yourself and feel free to tell us your pronouns if you want to, but there's no pressure to. And it's the same with like when I introduce myself to people, I'm like, hiya, I'm Tabby. My pronouns are they or she. Just like when I'm first meeting them right at the very beginning, because then they'll probably be like, oh, hey, I'm Alison. My pronouns are she, her, because it just normalizes it completely. And if cis people do that more as well, it takes the pressure off of us,
Yeah.
because if trans people are the only people doing it, we kind of feel like we're sticking out and we're like being a bit awkward, and we're the ones who are like making it a big deal. But if everyone does it and it just becomes normal, it's like when people are like, how are you? What are you up to? What do you do? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do is like the go-to question when you first meet someone. And I don't care what you do for work. I care about what you do for fun. Like,
yeah, same.
tell me,
I never know what people do for a
Yeah.
job, because I don't care. I don't care to ask.
yeah, like let's normalize just introducing pronouns instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, like, as we're seeing more people, thankfully, let's face it, it's like, it's not even a trickle, it's droplets of people on TV. Do you think there will be a time in the future where people don't care about people's like gender identities, where it won't be this thing? Because if we can, I'm not saying we're going to smash a patriarchy overnight, although I'd like to, but do you think the destabilization and crumbling of certain aspects of that will just make it a thing where no one really has to say what their gender is? Like, you'll have your, I suppose, your biological sex at birth, and then then that's kind of the end of it.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope so. I think we restrict young people so much by enforcing these gender norms on them from such an early age. But I don't know that it will ever go away, because I feel like even if in like 1,000 years we're like, oh yeah, we've totally moved past that, someone will be like, oh no, I'm just like really into the 2000s, you know?
Yeah.
I'm really into their ideas of like repressing gender, and like it's really retro, and I just think that's really cool, and we should like bring that back, you know? In the same way that now some people are like, oh yeah, I just want to be a 50s housewife, and I was like,
yeah,
but
that's cool. It's all about, I think so, it's all about choice, and that's the point. Yeah.
But also like, let's look at what 50s housewives were actually like, not just putting on a nice skirt and baking cupcakes.
Like, truly, it's like, it's not just like, what do they call it? It's not just the victory rolls and standing around with the pinny on with, don't get like banging clothing on. That is not what it is. There is so much like, more to it. You can't
like
have
racism
a bank
and
account.
Domestic violence and
yeah. And you can never get divorced. And if you even have one bout of depression, we're going to throw you in an asylum for the rest of your days. Yeah, people really don't. They really don't understand. They just look at the aesthetics, don't they? But yeah,
like, I liked Grease. Yeah, a movie made in the 70s, hon.
Exactly, a movie made in the 70s where 50-year-olds play teenagers.
The dream. The dream.
Don't we all wish we could do that? So I mentioned before about like talking about gender identity with other people, and one of the most common things that people say to me whenever I talk about gender is, well, all I know is that I'm a man or woman, and nothing can change that, hun. I don't know why I'm doing these voices. None of these people use these voices, but this is what's happening. I just really need to distinguish from the fact that it's not me saying it. But they always
really
kind of, I'm going to carry on. But yeah, they always kind of really try to assert it like, no one can tell me I'm not. And it's like, I think that you aren't understanding that no one is telling you what you are. What?
100%.
Yeah. What do you get that much?
Yeah. And I just think, again, I think a lot of it is people just being scared of what they don't know.
Yeah.
And people not being willing to like not give a shit, really. Like, it's people want to be angry about something. Also, people want a common enemy. Like, a common enemy is really useful. And the media have decided that like trans people are that common enemy now. Like, it's such,
even at the moment, it's
so gross, and the words that they use to describe trans people are so dehumanizing, and that's on purpose, and it's to elicit a response from people and to use trans people as a scapegoat for why things aren't working, why domestic violence shelters aren't funded enough, or why people are getting turned away, and blah blah blah. And it's just, again, it's like the Skittles pie. There should be enough for everyone, and if there isn't, that's because the government aren't funding things, not because trans people are taking everything. And actually, it's just men in dresses trying to get closer to women. Like, and with all of that discourse as well, it just completely ignores the existence of trans men. and of transmasculine people
Entirely.
and of non-binary people, and
Literally.
it's so ridiculous.
That focus, it's so crazy, because it's kind of this, when I look at that, there are a few things that piss me off about this. One, there are actually genuinely so few trans people that it's like a lot of people are getting incredibly pissed off about such a small community that have nothing to do with them. The second thing that fucks me off, I have been in an emotionally abusive relationship. I'm a woman, so of course I am in that 96% that have lived their life being harassed by men up until fucking a few weeks ago. It happens all the goddamn time. None of them had to fucking put on a dress to do it. Not a single goddamn one. They
100%.
rocked up as themselves because they are allowed to and emboldened by society. They don't need to do, no one needs to put themselves through something that is horrific in terms of what you have to go through, putting yourself in the position of being such a marginalized member of society, putting yourself in position of being at an increased risk of being beaten up and killed and all these. No one needs to do that to do anything to you as a woman, because they know they can do it and they can get away with it.
100%.
Look at otherwise there wouldn't be all these women that have to go to the press to then assert something that they've already told the authorities and everyone else in power, just to get a bloody director or writer or somebody out of a company because they are a danger to women. That man did not need to put on a fucking dress. Can we please throw this narrative in the fucking sea? I'm sick of it.
Louder, please, for the people at the back.
Yes, I cannot with this shit anymore.
It is ridiculous, and it's just plain old-fashioned bigotry, let's be honest.
Yeah, and it's still
like, we can try and call it, we can try and understand it, we can try and, like, I've spent so long trying to, like, justify it and try and understand it so that I can, like, educate people, and some people just don't want to be educated. Some people are just not nice people.
Yeah, some people are committed
at the end of the
bullshit.
At the end of the day, some people know that the more they talk about it, the more coverage they'll get, or the more power they'll get, or the more followers they'll get, or even just like the more secure they'll feel in themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm very sad that that is how they feel they need to do it.
And it's wild because, like you were saying, this that whole narrative excludes trans men.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because it's like, what it does is it puts trans women still in this position of misogyny. Yeah. So I was like, no one is choosing this. Like, this is like
100%.
Yeah, and it's like so it's like brilliant. It's like, here's a crash course in misogyny, trans women. That's kind of what it's like, isn't it? And it's still this thing, but still attacking them for their assigned like gender at birth. I'm just like, the whole thing just blows my mind. And what blows my mind as well is the doubling down of people who want to have that conversation, who basically have no horse in that race. Yeah, and it's like it's not affecting them. It's not affecting their children. It's not affecting their country club. It's not affecting their desk of gold because they got far too much money and time on their hands. Just buy some more gold desks, J.K. Rowling. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Charter a ship and go and search for treasure if you're that fucking bored.
I mean, J.K. Rowling has always been like, she has dodgy views on everything. Do you remember the goblins in Harry Potter? And how they're described as being...
No, I don't really remember I like Harry Potter, but still I can't remember.
So the goblins run the bank, and they're hook-nosed and secretive and obsessed with money.
Oh, God,
And it's like the worst Jewish stereotypes that we should have grown out of years ago.
Yeah.
And even then, when you go back and reread Harry Potter now, it's very clear that Rita Skeeter is trans-coded. She's described as having large hands and masculine features and being a handsome woman. And it's like, oh, it's been there since day dot. You've always been a dick. We were too young to realise at the time.
Yeah. And the thing is though, and it's, I don't know, I just don't get it. It's just like, hun, you can always just, I don't know, mind your fucking business. Just like, and it's like, I don't know, I can't even be bothered to, and I love Harry Potter, fucking love Harry Potter. So
same. I was so
disappointing. Like,
I was such a huge Potterhead, and it was so upsetting to me. But it's like, I just think the way to get around this is to have more trans people, full stop, more trans people speaking on trans issues, more trans people speaking on not trans issues, more trans people just normalizing being trans. Because in 2020 in the mainstream media, there were, I think it was 357, but that number might be wrong, 357 articles about trans issues in mainstream media written by cis people.
I can't. Are you like, actually, I don't even know why I'm saying
And
that.
do you want to know?
Love to talk about.
Do you want to know how
shit.
many written by trans people in mainstream media?
Okay, go on.
0.
Not even one. Not even in the Guardian.
Not even one. No, the Guardian is transphobic as hell, which is so annoying because they gave me such a lovely review for my show.
Yeah.
And I was like Guardian poster girl for like 5 minutes. Then I was like, wait, no, they're dickheads. I don't care.
Oh no, that's so. I mean, I'm not so. I mean, nothing surprises me as a black person. Nothing fucking surprises me. I am waiting to be surprised by bigotry. Like I will die waiting to be surprised by the shit that people will do. But it is, I don't. That's so wild. But then, of course, I know that white people love to talk about race. We'll talk about the fact that I shouldn't feel offended by racism. So why wouldn't I be surprised that a cis person wants to talk about what people should do, what trans people should do? It's not surprising at all.
They're so used to being the dominant narrative. They're so used to being allowed to speak on anything and everything. And I say they as if I'm not white. Obviously I am, but I'm talking about cis white people specifically at that point. But then also like, I don't discount myself from that. Like I'm benefiting from a racist society. Like I am, as a middle-class white trans person, I have so much more privileges than my trans siblings of color. Like it's so, the interactions that I get on social media are so different to those of my peers of color, like Travis Alabanza and people like that. And it's markedly different. And it's something that I am so acutely aware of, and why I try to speak up and speak loudly, and like also just raise other voices and do what I can to try and use the small platform that I do have to like be like, how about we're all better? How about we all try and do better? Yeah,
literally.
Like, I can still be better. I'm sure there are little microaggressions that I have committed that I can learn from and not do again. And that's not because I'm the worst person in the world. That's because we've all grown up in this society and we've all benefited from it. And it takes time to unlearn things. And I think people are so, the thing that pisses me off so much at the moment is that accusations of racism or transphobia are taken more seriously than actual racism and transphobia. People are more scared to be called racist than they are to say something racist. You can't
just say that. You can't call me a racist. And I was like, well, guess what? That person can't call me the M word. Like, can we talk about that for a sec?
Literally. It's so, and I'm like, just, you might not be racist, you might not be a transphobe, but you did something racist and you did something transphobic, and you can just say, oh shit, I didn't realize that was racist or transphobic. Soz babe, I won't do it again. That's all it takes. Don't internalize it and make it all about you, because
don't
you're not
Sharon
the victim
Osbourne
here.
it. Don't Sharon Osbourne
my God.
Whatever you do. Literally, I do not know how anyone on that panel didn't get up and slap the taste out of her mouth. I would have taken off my shoes. I would have taken off my earrings. Shit would have been flying across the stage. I would have leaned fully into the stereotype, because I'm like, I can't stand when people are crying when they've done something anyway.
Oh my God, yeah.
It doesn't make me feel, I don't feel bad about it. That shit fuels me. So it's like filled with rage. Right. So why? I mean, we talked about it a bit before about why society is struggling so much for people to accept that people are transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming. But what things do you think it really comes down to?
Because it's new to their understanding, and it changes their understanding of who they are. I think. Like, it doesn't actually affect them in any way, shape, or form. But if they know that there's an option out there that they feel like they weren't given, like even if they wouldn't, if everyone was given a tick box at 15 saying, do you want to be trans? They would all click no, but they're pissed off they didn't get the tick box. Like, do you know what I mean? They're pissed off they didn't think about the option. They feel like they're missing out on something maybe. And also I do just think it's the acceptable bigotry at the moment. It's the thing that you're allowed to do almost, and not be, you can't be like homophobic on telly anymore. You can't say, we've thankfully moved past that conversation. But you're allowed to go on TV and shout at trans people. Like, that's the thing. You're allowed to go on This Morning and have a panel of 3 cis people bitching about trans people and how awful they are, and not have a trans person present, or only have one trans person present who's like 21, has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, but only came out yesterday.
And
like,
then also puts them in that horrible position as well, which is, like, I mean, I know as a Black woman, as someone that I do little bits and bobs in not huge amounts in press or whatever, but there is a reason, because I'm like, no, this shit is not a legitimate, this isn't a debate. It's one thing to ask me my opinion or take on something, or to explain something to people outside of my community so it can help them better understand it. But I will not be in a position to sit down and debate my existence with a single fucking person.
Literally.
You can literally kiss my entire asshole for that. Like, no, just no.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? And what do you, I mean, you brought up a few, I mean, there's so many good points throughout this entire conversation, but I feel like as well, one of the things, there are really ridiculous things that people are doubling down on as well when attacking like gender non-conformity and things like toilets. I mean, to be fair, if I mean, optically, I do not know, but optically it looks like feels like maybe being made a bigger deal of in the US than in the UK. Is that fair to say? Or
I would maybe say opposite, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff over here. So the government had a consultation recently to ban ungendered bathrooms. They had a full-on page on their website being like, we're seeking yeah, because so much shit has happened in the past year, and they fucked up on so much. Like, every now and then I'm like, do you remember when Boris tried to like abolish the government last year? Like, that literally happened and we forget. Like, he literally was like, oh, by the way, we've got a massive global pandemic on, but I'm going to close Parliament and not do my job for like a month. And we were all like, okay, yeah, chill. You do you, babe.
Everything has happened in the last year, more than in entire human history.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
That is,
So I think in some ways America is so much further forward in the conversation than us, and in some ways it's so much further back, because in America there are so many more trans public figures. You have people like Laverne Cox and like Janet Mock and like MJ Rodriguez and Elliot Page and Theo Germain and Ian Alexander and all of those people who are like in huge mainstream TV shows. They're in Star Trek, they're in Orange is the New Black, they're in Pose. And over here we have like 2 trans people in a soap. We have 1 trans person on Emmerdale and 1 trans person on Hollyoaks, and that's literally it, as far as I'm aware. We've never had like a non-binary lead character in a TV show on either sides of the Atlantic. We've never had, like, in UK TV, I've never seen anything with like a gender diverse cast. There's always 1 token trans person, but you never see like groups of trans friends. You never see trans people being happy. You never see anything like that. And I think we have imported our version of transphobia to America and to other countries because they've seen how well it's doing here, to be honest. The like liberal white woman face of transphobia, where you can be very polite and very well spoken, and you can be that like, oh, but I'm so lovely, and don't you know, you've read my books and you know that I'm really nice, because remember, people, Nazis are bad, and that's a very good important lesson, and even when they're wizard Nazis, it's still bad, but remember, trans people are still awful. And I think we are like importing that around the world now. And you see that when literal like massive transphobes from the UK are doing speaking tours of the US, and they are involved in those sort of organizations and in those grassroots campaigns in state by state legislation, where they're trying to ban trans kids from doing sport, or ban trans kids from accessing healthcare and things like that. That all started here first, unfortunately. Like, we, once again, white British people are importing their fucking prejudices all around the world.
It's so that's so wild. It's like I completely forgot about that, because genuinely so much stuff has happened. It's like I don't know what shit thing to retain in my brain at the moment.
Literally, we can't retain it. It's not enough room with self-care and understanding like everything that's going on. It's insane.
It is. And in order to, I suppose, make the world better, for non-binary people, for trans people, what do you think can be done? What do you think that we can do? Or what do you think everyone can do? Because it's not just always our responsibility, is it?
I think be chill.
Yeah.
Basically, it's really easy to just be chill and not to question things and not to like be really friggin' awkward about it and be really othering and like just accept people, support the trans and non-binary people in your life. If you don't have trans or non-binary people in your life, question why that is. Like, why are you not attracting those friends? Is that because they might not feel safe around you, or is that because you're not going to the spaces where they might be to meet them? And if that's the case, like, do it. Our bars are better. Our clubs are better. Our theatre is better. Our music is better. It's like, if it's not stale white cis people, like, it's going to be more interesting, whether that's racial diversity, whether that's gender diversity, whether that's age diversity, whatever that is. Like, you need that in your life, and like ideally a combination of the three, because intersectionality, not sure if you've heard of it, but it's a thing. And like, just go out of your comfort zone and make friends with people from all different walks of life. Make friends with people from different class backgrounds, from different ages, from different races, from different genders, and like just normalize that within your life and within your world. And if everyone normalizes things within their own little world of like, oh yeah, I'm just friends with like people who are chill, then eventually everyone will be a person who's chill.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a really weird way of phrasing that, but
I love it. Well, no, I get it. It's like, yeah, if we can have these, like, if everybody just calmed down and just accepted people, wouldn't we all just be better off for it? I don't know. It's like, it's weird. Like, why double down on being a bellend? That seems like a lot of work.
Literally.
So, well, I mean, I have loved every part of this conversation.
It's been so much fun.
And,
let's go get a drink at some point as well.
Oh my God, I was just about to say that. So where can we find you online, and can you please remind us of where we can find your plays and all your works?
Of course, you can find me on my website at tabbylamb.com. You can find me on Instagram at badgalnb, because I want to be the non-binary Rihanna. You can find me on Twitter at the Tabby Lamb. You can find me on Facebook as Tabby Lamb, and you can usually find me wandering around Walthamstow.
Nice.
And my plays are those audio plays being released by 45 North, and I will be signposting them and shouting them lots from my social media platforms. So if you follow me, you will not miss them.
Brilliant. I can't wait. Thank you so much for joining
me
today.
My absolute pleasure.
Brightening up this Wednesday. I mean, because it's a bit gloomy outside.
It is.
But not when I'm looking at you, Tabby.
Well, I've got my blue sky behind me, babes.
Exactly. It's just you, and you're just radiating like the sun. I love it. Thank you so much, hon.
My absolute pleasure. Have a lovely rest of your day, my darling.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!